But this morning, so I'm still making my way through Hebrews, and right now we are in chapter 10, and we're going to be focusing on verses 19 through 25. The big idea here that it's going through, it's kind of a point in the writer's thought process where they've been setting up this idea, explaining something for chapters. Of course, they didn't write in chapters. We put those in, right? They weren't like, period, chapter 11, da-da-da, They just wrote a letter, and then we went that and put verses to it. Why? So it's easier for us to come back to it, right? And to learn it and to reference it. But for the last few chapters in what he's been writing here, he's been sort of setting up this idea, and now he sort of says, okay, he summarizes it, and then he starts giving us some action items. Some of the action items, we're going to go through those in there, and one is, and I always feel weird preaching this, but, the not giving up meeting together, come to church, because I'm preaching it to people who are in church, okay? So it's kind of like, well, you're here already. But it's important for us to hear. But in that, I was thinking about it, and I thought, man, there is something about Sunday mornings, though. I've been in ministry, involved in a church outside of just attending since I was 15 years old. I went to church because I was doing something. I was serving. I was helping. I was a part of a ministry. And that's just kind of been my whole life. That's how I grew up and what we were taught to do. And so that's just what you do. And one of the things that I got involved with early on there was music and helping out with the music teams, and eventually was leading those teams. And that's even what I did when I was up in Green Bay. The church up there before I came down here a few years ago was one of the things I did was oversaw all the music. And there were times where I oversaw multiple music teams, because we were planting these little video campuses back at the time, which you guys have been here for a while. Remember, this used to be a video campus. And we had like a West Green Bay one, an East Green Bay. We had like a Hispanic, Latino campus and all these things. And I was responsible for making sure that they had people, the people were there, the band was there, they knew what they were doing, all this stuff. Now, the nice thing is it's actually not that hard. You can sit down, and if you know what you're doing, and I grew up doing this my whole life, it's not too bad. You can plan. You can plan months out. You can know what's going on. But something I started learning as I started overseeing several things is there's something about Sunday morning that if something is going to go wrong, it will happen Sunday morning. I started thinking, are Sunday mornings cursed? Is it the devil attacking us? All this stuff. But it was like, if someone's going to get sick and so sick that they can't perform, you want to know when that's going to hit them? Sunday morning, 6 a.m. They kind of been struggling with it all week, and Sunday morning, 6 a.m., boom, that's it, done. If someone's going to sleep in and miss one gig, if they haven't missed one in 3 years, you know the one they're going to miss? Sunday morning. Or a snowstorm. If it's going to come through, it seems like it's going to start. There was actually a few years where I think every snowstorm started about 4 a.m. Sunday morning. And I'd have to wake up early, see what the weather's doing, wait to hear are we having church or not having church again, multiple campus, who's having church, who isn't, and then I'd have to hit all the band. Who can make it to church? I'm like, well, we can put together one band out of 3. What do we do? How do we do that? And it was like I'd spend all this time planning, and the craziest was not craziest, but yeah, it was crazy. But we were doing a special Christmas thing, and we put together some special music, and it was, different than what we normally do. It was actually months of planning to prep and get that all ready. And one of the key male vocalists, who was leading like 80% of it, guess when he gets sick and he can't sing and his voice gone? Sunday morning. So now I spent months planning all this stuff, and Sunday morning I had 30 minutes to, redo it all and figure something out. And I thought, not everyone has that experience because most of you aren't working right now, whereas I am. There is something about Sunday morning that it's like that bed never felt more cozy, right? The day, that stress that sits all week, there's nothing that will cure it quite like taking off Sunday. And because of that, we stop pursuing regularly in our faith. Now, I'm kind of jumping ahead in my sermon, but I just sort of wanted to set that up, let you know where we're going. But first off, let's start where the writer starts here in verses 19 through 21, and we'll read that. He writes, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body, and since we have a great priest over all the house of God," and then I'll pause right there, mid-thought. But right now what the writer is doing, as I said, summarizing everything that he's just sort of written in there. This whole idea of these last, basically chapters 7 up through 10, the first part of 10 here, we're not reading it this morning, but he's setting up that Jesus is the superior high priest, that he offered a sacrifice once and for all, and that it's a new covenant better than the old covenant they had. And now, if you're here several weeks ago, I told you how, that the audience here, it's these Jewish Christians. They grew up under this old covenant. They grew up in all that Old Testament stuff and had to do certain rituals and all this. It was a part of their daily life. And so sometimes the language used, we're just like, what? Okay. But for them, it was very, very powerful. And so what he's sitting here and he's writing is, you notice it starts with therefore. And so you can tell, okay, he just set up a bunch of stuff and now he's going to tell. So therefore, because of this stuff, let's do this. And the way, I love how he condenses this all. Since we have this confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus. For them, if you remember me talking about how there was this place, the holy place where God resided in their temple, but there was a curtain that separated that. And the priest could go in and they can do this work, but they couldn't go past that curtain. In fact, only one guy could, the high priest, and he only could do it once a year. And he had to make sure his stuff was together. He had, am I dressed the right way and doing his stuff? He had to go in and he had to offer sacrifices first for his own sins and then for the people. And if he didn't do it right, it was like a gnat in a bug zapper. Zap! And so what they did is they would literally tie a rope around the guy. And he had bells. And if you heard the bells crash, oh, Jim, you're on deck, and they'd pull this guy out. Next, I had to go in. I mean, if you had to go do a job that you knew was important, you had to do it, and the dude who did it just before you just died, how many of you would really make sure you're following the procedures? This is their understanding of God. And what the writer's saying, you now have this confidence. You can boldly walk in. So like I said again, it's old covenant stuff. We didn't grow up like this, couldn't understand it. But I was reminded of a story. I've probably told it. But I was called from a buddy of mine years ago. Maybe 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. I'm getting up there, as is evident by my, that's too far, then the phone's too close. I got a sweet spot where I can see things. But he called me and he said, hey, listen, the Packers are playing next month down here in New Orleans. My wife's company has box seat tickets. If you come on down, man, we'll come hang out in the box seat, we'll get you in. I was like, okay. And so I grabbed a ticket. This was back when, was it 2008 or something like that? Like I could get a round-trip ticket to New Orleans for like $70. I was like, okay. So I jump in and I fly down there and I get there. And then he goes, okay, so now here's the deal. We only have 2 tickets for my wife and myself. It's like probably key information before I flew all the way down to New Orleans. But he goes, here's what we're going to do. You just go buy like a cheap seat tickets. And, it's not Lambeau Field. It's down there. So you can get cheap tickets because they don't have enough people to fill the stadium. Poor suckers. Okay. You get cheap tickets, and then we'll go in, and then I'll come back and figure out a way to sneak you in. Right? Okay. So sure enough, I buy my seat way up in the nosebleeds. About 20 minutes later, he comes down, and he's there, and he pulls out his wife's pass, and he says, okay, I snuck this out. Put this over your head. And then he gave me like a drink that was like, that you got, because you get fancy drinks. Randy knows I'm talking about. You go to a lot of private boxes, I hear, Randy. You can ask him about that. some people, live different lives. It's okay. It's nice to hear about how the other half lives. So I was able to I was able to get this cup as well that kind of had like the company logo or something on. And so then I go walking trying to make it look like I belong there and I've been there. And I went past the security guard, and I tell you what, it worked. I got past and I enjoyed it. But there was a little fear and trembling in me the whole time. One thing I did not wear to the game was any Packer paraphernalia. I don't need attention being drawn to the guy who snuck into this box. Now, no one in the box cares. It's like one of those scenarios where everyone's like, man, I don't care if you come in. The only person that cared was that security guard. But I had to get past him, and then every time he went to the bathroom, put that on, because you have to go outside the suite and go to the bathroom. I'm like, I belong here. I'm a part of whatever this medical thing is. doctor, But I sat in there, and I tried to kind of had a little bit of like, let's not make a fool of yourself or yell or do something that makes someone go, who is this guy in our box? And why is he here? Because I would have been kicked out. And as I was reading this, I thought, okay, this is my lame connection I can make with that. But that's kind of what their experience with God was. These guys could go in there, but just don't, got to be right. Security guard's going to kick me out. And what the writer here is saying, he's saying, listen, what has basically happened, what Jesus did, it would be like the owner of the Saints coming to me and say, Phil, man, I love you, man. It's so great to see you. Hey, guess what? You have free access to my suite whenever you want it. Come and go. It doesn't matter. Any game. You just come and just walk through like you own the place. How many would prefer that over having your friend trying to legally sneak you in? Which, by the way, I'm not giving you a descriptive thing there. Okay, this is our prescriptive, like try to sneak into places. Okay, I was young. I was stupid. I wouldn't do the same thing now. But this is sort of what this writer here is talking about. These people, there's some fear in them. Sometimes we bring some fear in, man, depending on how you grew up or what have you. It's like, man, the only time I heard about God was how he wanted to beat the tar out of me and, strike me down if I mess up. And, maybe you had an intense grandma or something in your life, put the fear of God in you, and not the good kind. Like you're literally like, oh my gosh, he's going to strike me down. You might be here today for the first time and you weren't sure stepping through. Like, am I going to get zapped? And, is that static electricity or is that God? He knows, I see that guy trying to sneak into the church. And that fear keeps us from things. It keeps us from prayer. I can't pray. I don't know how to pray. I can't help it. I don't know how to. Yeah. And what the writer here is saying is get rid of all of that stuff. You now have confidence to walk in this new and living way, it says. It talks about how his body is like the new curtain entering in. Again, it's using this picture of the temple that they all understood. He said, now you come through Jesus. Now what's neat is in Matthew, when Jesus dies, it talks about how they write and say that when he died at that moment, that curtain that separated us from God was torn in two from the top down, showing that God tore it. It also says the earth quaked. And it was an intense thing. But that curtain is torn away. Why? Because now we have access to God. We can walk in and we can be with him. There used to be this separation, and that's how they lived their whole lives. If only he can go in there, and he better get it right, or we're pulling out his carcass. There was this fear, but God said, no. No more. Why? Because of what Jesus did. Because of what he did. And he's still in heaven as the great priest over the house of God. And what that means for us is he's still up there today. So when you come in here, when you come to God, it isn't you trying to sneak through. Don't look like you belong. Jesus sees you. He's like, no, man. Yeah, you're part of the family. Come on in. Now, our response to this, the writer gives us three things. Our response to seeing this, our response to understanding that we have this access to God. Now, what does this mean for us? Three things. First is to draw near. He writes this in verse 22, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. So it's number one, we need to draw near to God. How do we draw near to him? One, with sincere hearts. It means be you. Be real. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to pretend like you're all right. I had to pretend like I belonged to get into that box. And you know what? The Packers, it was like the worst loss in Packers history, that game that I went to. That's probably God, I don't know. Well, okay, you're going to sneak in, dude. All right, enjoy the game. I'd have probably enjoyed it more had I not made it in there. Anyway, clearly I'm over it. I don't even think about it. That's so weird. Why you guys keep asking me about it? Okay. But when we go into him with sincere hearts, just how we are. We think we need to fancy up. We think, listen, if you've been a Christian long enough, you've probably had at some point some version of this thought come into your head that I need to get myself right so that I can get closer to God. I need to figure something out in here so then I can be closer to him. Rather than if you're young, you think, someday, I'm just kind of doing what I want to do, but someday just somehow my feelings are going to, and then I'll want to be close to God, and then I can be close to God. What God's saying is just come to me now, as you are. Sincere heart. Well, I'm kind of a mess. Great. You don't get access into heaven because you're so great. You had a great week, not any closer to God. You don't get access. The only way that we get access to him is through what Jesus did. And he explains how it's like an inside cleansing that happened. The writer here uses Old Testament language again, talking about our hearts sprinkled clean, because what they had to do is when something was unclean and to clean it, they would sprinkle it with blood. Thankfully, we don't have to sprinkle ourselves with blood anymore. That's gross. But they would have to do that because it was all this outward thing. And he even talks about their baptism. Baptism was something that they did all the time. In fact, if you go back and look at, like, archaeologists have uncovered all of these little baptism pools that they had. Because anytime you did anything that was, like, unclean, you had to go and you had to dip in the thing, Oh, I touched that table, and that table was unclean, and now I'm unclean, and now I got to go stand in the baptism line again. They'd stand in. Even items would be unclean. Some of the pools were real big. And let's say your chair became unclean. You'd go stand in the chair clean aisle, and you have to go and baptize your chair, so now your chair is clean. This was everyday life for them. You see how, when they're talking about this thing, it's kind of trying to really speak their language of how this changes everything for you guys. And when he talks about, too, in this baptism, how it's having our bodies washed with pure water, and cleansing us, this is a nod, too, to baptism. Now, I mentioned how after service today we're doing a child dedication. Some of you have done child baptism, and depending on, your upbringing or whatever, like it's drilled into you, like, we got to baptize this kid, or, And I'm fine. Child baptism is fine. It's great. It's really the same thing as what we do at a dedication. It's kind of a covenant deal. But it doesn't get you into heaven. We get into heaven by what alone? Faith. That's it. Faith alone. And so I don't have to get baptized. I mean, Jesus tells me we should get baptized. Matthew 18, Jesus says, this is after he's resurrected, he's talking to his disciples. He says, guys, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. And then he tells them what? Baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Go out there, teach them about me, and baptize them. So then baptism gets me into heaven? No. I mean, again, I spoke about this a few weeks ago, right? The thief on the cross next to Jesus. That guy was a sinner all up until his last moment, when all of a sudden he realized who this was hanging next to him. And he put faith in him. Couldn't baptize him. He was pretty stuck. Literally, all right? And what did Jesus say to him? He said, today you'll be with me in paradise. It's through faith alone. Sometimes, you figure like, well, how does a kid put faith in Jesus? I don't think they can. So then they're going to hell? No. The Bible's real clear that Jesus loves kids. Loves them. Right, you remember when he's teaching and the kids are coming around and people trying to shoo him away? They're loud, they're noisy. They're not sitting still and being polite. And they're little germ carriers. And just sometimes you'll see, What did Jesus say? Stop it. Come here. Give him the best seat right next to me. Jesus has a real heart for kids, so we don't have to worry about that. But I think dedicating them is a great idea, or a covenant baptism, that's great. But I also think that when you get old enough to make that decision for yourself, right? Because you're not a Christian because mom and dad are a Christian. You're not going to heaven because mom and dad are going to heaven. It's about you. You have to put faith in God. And when you do that and you make that decision, you know what the Bible tells you should do? Go get baptized. Jesus did it, told us to do it. You see it throughout the New Testament. People go and they get saved and they say, well, baptize me. And so I encourage you, if you've never done that, maybe you were baptized as a baby, but you didn't, when it was a profession of your own faith, you haven't do it. I encourage you to do it. And you know what? Good news is I got a new baptismal. It came in. And my baptismal guy says it'll be ready to be right up here in the front of church. We can do them Palm Sunday. So let's do some baptism Palm Sunday. Yeah? Which is March 29th. Which is also what? Palm Sunday. Which is when? March 29th. Which is also Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday. March 29th. Okay. Why am I making you repeat it? I don't have it written anywhere else. And I know what you guys are going to do. You're going to forget. And I'd be like, when did Pastor say that was again? It's on March 29th, which is Palm Sunday. There we go. Okay. What do you have to do? Nothing. Just you can show up. Now, I just to help me with numbers so I can plan, because obviously there's 150 people. That takes a little longer than 3. But you can go. There's a few of you that have done this already. You can go to hit the Connect card and mark down you want to get baptized. How do I get the Connect card? You can go to the website, cfe.church, or you can tap your phone on the little disc. It'll take you there and just mark down you want to get baptized. We'll do it in service. We'll have a baptism service. You'll come forward. We'll recite together the creed, which is like your public profession, and then boom, we'll get you all baptized, okay? So bring an extra pair of clothes. Bring a towel. Don't wear white. Save you and us from embarrassment. Okay? If you know why that needs to be a thing, then you know why that needs to be a thing. And we'll do them kind of right there in the service and hit that way. All right? So, it's on when? March 20th. Great. You tell all your friends who don't know, you are now the person they can go to and have that figured out. But we should be doing it. I encourage you guys to do it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You might be saying, well, I was baptized, but then I felt like I kind of backslid a little bit and I come back. Do I need to rebaptize again? No, I do not think that you do. It is when you put faith in God. When you did it, did you have faith in Jesus? Yes, I did. You're good. Well, I kind of messed up this and that. Yeah, if that was the case, we'd have open baptism pool be just like the old covenant. I have to go bounce back. I have to baptize myself before I came in this morning, okay? So we don't need to do that. Now, these drawing near to him is the first one. Second one we have is that the writer tells us is we need to draw near, and then we also, okay. I won't go into all that stuff. Okay. Number 2 is to hold fast. Hebrews 10:23, he writes this, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope that we profess, for he who promised is faithful." So the first one is to draw near, and then to hold fast. And drawing near to God, just, this means, I think of it think of it this way, right? If someone comes to you and you have a friend and they say, hey, there's this, single guy and he works with a single girl and he thinks she's kind of cute and he'd like to go on a date and he says, I don't know, what should I do? What should I do? What's one of the first things that you all would tell him to do? Go talk to her, right? Have you tried talking to her? And depending on his age, he might think that's insane. Talk to a human being? I'll get her social first or do whatever. Okay, whatever. I'm just saying that because I like to tell my kids that they can actually talk to. They do very well. So now they're going to be like, Dad, you're making it sound like we're awful. They aren't awful. They're actually really good. God bless them. They're awesome. But talk to the person. You want to get to know someone a little bit more, engage them in conversation. So if you want to draw near to God, you should probably, you should talk to him. Pray to him. You say, well, I'm not sure how to do that. Well, remember last couple weeks now, we've been talking about this awesome app, Lectio 365, that we have. And you can get that thing, and it takes you through these little devotionals. You can hit play and let them pray it for you. Or the prayers are written out, and you can read that. But just starting to spend some time communing with him, you're drawing closer to him. When we worship him, in anything that we do, we begin to draw near him. And then it tells us to hold fast, hold tight to that. And you think, yeah, because when we go through things that are really tough, it can be difficult. And it can, but you want to know the time I think it's the easiest to let go of God? When everything in your life's going good. At least it is for me. I mean, when things are going tough, I might have a little freak out moment, but I run to God like crazy. Dear God, I need you. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I'm just stressed and I'm this and that. And Lord, and I pray more and I'm closer and I'm holding tight. And then when things are going good, I'm like, oh, all right. Right? And so the warning here is don't do that. Hold fast. Keep drawing near him even when you think you don't need it. It's just like in a marriage, right? Should you talk to your wife, husbands, only when you think she needs it? Most of you are like, yes. Why would I engage her? Because then she might yell at me or ask me to do something. No, you engage her. You say, what do I say? Nothing. Ask her how she's doing and listen to her. Tell you about the day, you know? But you got to do it. You know, think about when you were dating. When you were dating, for most people say, well, that's the closest we were. That's when we were the most in love. Why? Because you have to choose to spend time with that person. So you're choosing to spend time with them, choosing to spend time with them. Then you get married, and you're kind of around them all the time. You stop choosing to spend time with them. You're not talking. You're not going on dates, not doing anything. All of a sudden, years go down. I don't know what happened. Things are different. We've lost something. You haven't lost any. It'd be like you used to run marathons, and then all of a sudden you sit on the couch for 3 years, do nothing, and you get up and you're like, I can't even get around the block. Something's just happened. My time has passed. I used to be able to run marathons, and I guess I just can't anymore. Have you tried running again? Regularly? You mean like every day? Yeah. Same thing with the relationship, your marriage. Keep dating, you guys. It's tough, and I know, but having a good marriage doesn't just happen. It happens on purpose. You have to be purposeful about it. And in that same way, what he's saying here is to hold fast, draw close. It's on purpose. You want to feel closer to God. You want more God in your life. It happens on purpose. And don't just run to it. You know, it's not a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. He's saying hold fast. Don't ever give this up. And then number 3. And this one, if the first 2 didn't lose you, this one usually does. It says to consider one another. In Hebrews 10:24, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing. Clearly, Sunday mornings have been an issue for people for thousands of years. But encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Here's what is awesome about this and what is telling about the heart of God. You know, the first 2 things, drawing near and holding fast, that's very personal. That's you in God. But he never leaves it there, does he? Number 3 is to consider others. Most of us think, yeah, it's the first 2, and then eventually I'll build up to number 2 if I have it, or the number 3, if I can, get enough time, and now's not a good season for me for number 3, I'll think about other people eventually. But anytime you see it, whether the writer here is writing it or Jesus himself, He's saying, here's the two greatest commands. Here's what you need to do. You need to love God, and you need to love other people. This is what the writer says saying here. Consider, think about how you can spur one another with love and good deeds, which means love and good deeds don't just happen. There's some action in there that needs to happen. And listen, a lot of Christians struggle with this. They think they're not mature enough. Or when I get mature enough, then I can do. I think you're all mature enough to know how to be nice to someone. You're all mature enough to see if someone needs a friend, throw an arm around them. You're all mature enough to be able to, spiritually mature enough, talking about to be able to help serve someone and do something. And what's so crazy about this is all tied together, which means if you want the most you can get from God, it's not all just about feed me, which I always think a Little Shop of Horrors. Feed me, Morris. But it's about us engaging with other people. And listen, I'm convinced there are people here who there's a miracle waiting for you, there's a breakthrough waiting for you, but you have to engage with others. You're saying, really, that's how God's going to work? Yes. I mean, think about it. You know, when Jesus was here, he was the pastor of all pastors. Why isn't he sitting here? He tagged us. Why? Because there's something he loves about us loving one another. It's the reason we were created. It's one of the things he came to reconcile. It says Jesus came to reconcile us with God and us with each other. And so we should think about ways. What's a way I can encourage someone? I can engage with someone. I can help someone out. And it's tough. Why? Because you've met people before. You know how they can be. And you've met enough people, you think, I need to put as much distance as I can between me and other people. Well, okay, then maybe you can help people behind the scenes. Maybe you can shoot them a little text or do something. I mean, there's again, it says that we should consider. We all should be sitting down and thinking, how? How can I love others? How can I help someone? And I'm telling you, when you do that, watch how God blesses you. It's truth. I know that's been, like I said, since I was 15 years old, that's been my church experience. And I don't feel like I have stunted my growth. Many people, they're afraid of serving in the church because then they think they'll miss church. And then I sit there and think, I don't think you understand church. That's church. And I might miss a message or something like that. Sure, well, you can go and you can watch it online afterwards. But I'm telling you, you're missing out a little bit in this. I don't want you to miss this. We're gathering with these things. So three things. We have access to God, so we need to draw near, we need to hold fast, and we need to consider one another, and not giving up meeting together, which again, I'm saying this to people who are meeting together, but this is something we shouldn't just do once or twice a year. If you're at once and twice a year, see if you can switch to like 4 times a year. And maybe next you can double that. Go a little more. And in other words, you're making it intentional. You want to see some spiritual growth in your life. It happens on purpose. Amen?